Hey guys, welcome to the second video in Intro to Modding in DCS. The goal of this video is we're going to export an object or two objects from 3ds Max in the EDM format with textures correctly applied and check that it is working properly in Modelviewer. So we're going to jump into 3ds Max, and you'll want to have watched the first video in the series to make sure you've got it all set up properly, and that if you go over here, click on the hammer, you've got EDM Model Tool and EDM Export Toolbar. We'll just click back here. It's going to be really simple with this one. We're going to make two spheres. One's going to just be some metal, and then the other one will be a glass sphere. And my computer's not liking me today. So let's first off, actually, we're going to do a couple more things in 3ds Max, a couple basic settings or setup that will make our life a lot easier in the long run if you're making lots and lots of materials. I didn't put this in the first one because it's not necessary, but it will really help your workflow. So we're going to open up the material editor, so hit M in 3ds Max and it should come up something like this, or it might come up in the compact version. Like this. So we're just going to jump back to the slate material editor, just like here, and you'll find if we double click a material, bring it in here, double click on it, and we go down to maps, this is what, if you put in a texture map, this is what DCS uses to create the appearance of objects. And the problem is all these have all got 100, and most of the time you don't need them all, and most of them need to be set to 0. And the problem is every time you make a new material you've got to go in and start making these to 0. So we'll do this for the first one, but we're going to find a way that we can save a default material that you can just bring in every time, and it's the correct basis for for DCS in the future. So just go ahead, set all these to 0, and what you want to do is you want to leave diffuse color at 100. Cool. It's boolean. What we might name it as is DCS default. So I've just done that up there, and if I click off, and you can see it's saved up there. What we want to do now is hit G. Oh, that's doing the grid. Sorry. Oh, I know what I've done wrong. Got to go into the compact one, and now hit G. Okay. So this is the material browser. What we want to do is, so here you've got sample slots and then any materials that you're using in your project and all your different maps. We're going to create a new library that we'll use for all our DCS stuff. So create new material library, and let's name it DCS materials, and save. And there you can see it's popped up right there. What we can do now is over here, this DCS default, the one that we made just before, with everything set to 0 apart from the diffuse. Click, left click, hold, drag, and drag it into DCS materials map. Pretty simple. What will happen next time you close out of DCS, it'll ask you to save your file, but it'll also ask you to save your materials.mat. You want to make sure you click yes, so that every time you open up now, you can come in, bang, grab your DCS default, and you don't have to change all of these to 0 every time you want a DCS material. Cool. So let's close out of that, and we'll get into some objects. So I'm just going to, if you want to click the sun, that one there, click sphere, just drag, click and drag, we'll make two spheres, easy. Okay, so now you want to hit Q, which will allow you to select the different spheres, and then hit M. So we've still got that DCS default in the material editor from before. Double click, check, it's all still 0, so that's all fabulous. And what we want to do is we want to drag in one more into our work area, and if you double click on this one, you'll notice this one here is named number 1, and this is just the initial original one. Cool. So the left sphere, let's make that a metal ball. What we need to do is, like I said before, is DCS relies on texture maps. So you can't go up here, set a color and go, oh cool, that looks great. It actually needs to be a separate image file that has the color set on that. And I've pre-made some files that I'll include in a link below that you can download and use in this, and I'll also save the 3ds Max file and EDM file at different stages, so if you're having problems you can have a look at them and see what's going on. But what we want to do is on the maps we want to click none, and then maps, and then bitmap. And what you're going to go do is go find the location that you've downloaded those files to. I recommend just stick them in a folder on the desktop. I have mine in my DCS modeling, and then textures, and we're going to use this metal DDS, and then just hit open. Cool. And then if we zoom out here, you can see now there is the map linked into the DCS material. And what we want to do is click on our sphere, right click here and assign material to selection, and there we can see it's grey, and that's the grey coming through from there. Cool, we'll leave that one for now. Now we will do the second ball, and we're going to make that a glass sphere. So click on the second sphere, right click, assign material to selection, and it's grey because the standard format is grey as well. What we want to do is for diffuse color, same thing again, click none, double click bitmap, and we're going to choose this time the canopy.tga. Hit open. Cool. What we're going to then go down is go and click the little icon here and choose opacity, set that to 100. That means it has a full strength opacity. Actually, yeah, we'll set it to 100. Same thing, click none, bitmap, and then choose the canopy again. And you'll notice here that we've got the canopy loaded twice going in. What you could have done is done and gone and used it like that, so you only have the file used once. But we're going to have to make these different because we want, for the diffuse, we want the RGB channel coming out of that used as the diffuse color, and then we want the alpha channel to set the opacity, and we'll go into it. There'll be a whole nother video explaining all of just how to create glass, so we'll just move on with this as long as you're following along on the settings. Okay, so what we want to do is set our specular level to 90, and then our glossiness to 100, and up in the metal we're going to set that to 50 and 50, and these values can be changed later, tweaked and fine-tuned, but for the glass that's pretty specific. For the metal, leave it, that can be changed a lot more. So with the glass, as I mentioned before about the RGB and the opacity, come in here, and I've named this one RGB channel and this one the opacity map. But RGB channel, you want to make sure the mono channel output's RGB and alpha source is image alpha. In the opacity map, you need to change the mono channel output to alpha and leave the alpha source at image alpha. So that's the glass done, and that's the metal done. One last thing we need to do to make the model export properly in the EDM format is double click on any of your materials, and then we want to make cool. And as you'll see here, this whole extra tab's opened up, and this is DCS specific, doesn't get used for any other programs. So for the metal and most, you want to leave it as default, but with the glass, double click on the glass, let's minimize our maps, you can actually select the glass, so you want to do that. So we are now ready to export, so we can minimize out of there. Let's go export, and you want to choose the ED model export or .edm, and let's just choose the desktop because that's easy, and let's go video to test, save. And that was pretty quick because it's really simple, two really simple objects. A big thing is now that you've exported, if you want to change the names of any of your textures, and if you go look in really good produce mods, all the naming they've got some really good convention names, so it'll be the module name, the object name, and then what specific item it is. So if it's the diffuse or the specular, if you want to change that name of that file now, you have to change the name of the file, come back here into the model, and then find the map, so whichever one it is in particular, click here and find the correct model, or the map I should say, with the new name, and then re-export. The problem with that is when you get really complex models like aircrafts that have got 50,000 polygons or triangles in them, the export, instead of taking 3 seconds like it did then, can take upwards of 10 minutes. So you don't want to constantly be having to go back and do that. So you want to get your naming conventions set pretty early. So let's go find our EDM file. There it is. Cool. So before we had our textures in the desktop folder. I got mine from my DCS modeling folder and textures, and there's my canopy and there's my metal. If I open up my model viewer, which you should have installed if you watched the first video, I've got a taskbar set down here to open it up, and it's just taking a second to open. Okay, so we're open. If I go open and go to the desktop, and we called it video to test, and open, you'll see it's not quite looking right. That's because the model viewer, you have to put your textures, those files you create, in a very specific place. It doesn't matter where you had them set before and what 3ds Max knows. DCS works very differently, and so does model viewer, is it's just looking for the name of the textures, and you can see here under textures used there's nothing. So let's close out of that, and we'll go into where you saved your textures, and we want to grab the canopy and the metal, copy those, and we need to take them to where we have the model viewer installed. And like in the first video, I installed mine on the E drive, but you can install it on the C drive, that's fine. Model viewer, and you want to go into Bazaar, temp textures, and paste them there. Let's open model viewer again. Here we go. Let's open our EDM file, and there we go. That looks a bit more like glass, and that looks a bit more like a metal ball. Now, glass in DCS it's not a full calculation. It calculates an index of reflection and bends the rays and that. It sort of just gives it a masking of opacity. So that's pretty much as good as you can get glass at the moment in DCS. That brings our second video to an end. I hope you guys have learned something. This is just the first step of the workflow of getting an object into DCS, but it's very handy to go check in Model Viewer first. So if you like the video, subscribe, like, share, do all of those good things, and thank you very much.